How's everybody doing today? Let me check a few things. You see it. Oh, shoot. Did I forget the name? That's not cool. That is not cool. That is not cool. How's everybody doing today? That's not a huge deal. I don't think it's bothering me though. I'll leave it alone. Says that thing? Yeah. This is audit and accountability. I forgot to rename one of my slides, so I'll make sure I do that later. Give me one in the chat. Glad joining me, Samuel. Hello, how are you doing? Regine in the house. Glad, give me one if you can hear me. Let me go over to show some love on my LinkedIn. You know, I'm always struggle streaming. Uh, Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Check on my LinkedIn people before we get started. Thanks for joining me. Let me see if I can find me. Find me. Mm-hmm. You know how we do. If you got anything, put it in the chat. Just gonna welcome a few people on my LinkedIn. Samuel, thanks. Jeremy, thanks for joining me. Let me see, let that play. Let me get back over to my YouTube, my struggle streaming. Let's see, Samuel. A lot of study GRC family in the house. Thank you, Justin. Thanks, you Tech Urive. Jeremy. Mike V always in the house. Appreciate you. Let's go and get started. Hopefully it won't be that long. Thanks, Ghost MKC, for joining me. So everybody know I'm a NIST guy. We doing audit and accountability. So I thought I would start off with a quick architectural diagram. So if you see this, right, you got some the better diagrams coming up next. But all of these technologies, load balancers, EC2s, application load balancers, web apps, databases, we got to log all the stuff coming from these devices. Why? Number one is if we ever got breached, we need to be able to do forensics. Then a lot of times with MITRE, while these things are happening and APTs are moving around, we might be able to figure out from the movement if it goes to Active Directory, to a printer. That could be a Cozy Bear, I think is a Russian APT, which is Advanced Persistent Threat. Or if it's Vietnam, Israel, different groups move different ways. And as you log in that, you might be able to find out somebody's on your network before they actually be able to take anything. So once again, you want to log everything from your internet gateway, load balancer, EC2s, application load balancer, a database, you know, different things, KMS keys for encryption. So all that stuff you want to be able to log and track so you can figure out what's going to happen in your org. And everybody know I do government work. So the government says, IRS says, you got to log all that stuff so we can figure out what's happening. Right. So that's definitely a federal compliancy. Let's see. I need to figure out. So that's definitely federal compliancy. So once again, we're looking at an architectural diagram. Shout out to my man, Struggle Security. Definitely got to get him interviewing. All good. We got to chop it up on one. Oh, most definitely. I got to get you on the interview. Definitely, we need to chop it up. Thank a lot, Intuitive. Thanks for joining. But once again, we're just going to hit at the architecture. I was going to start doing more security architectural diagrams. And even from a GRC perspective, right? Internet gateway, we got to log that. Elastic load balancer. EC2, this could be a Lambda serverless. We know we got to get to containers, that being Docker or Kubernetes. You got to log all that stuff, right? You got to be able to track it. We're going to look at, a lot of people don't do IRS work. What is the IRS work for logging? Regime EC2, that's Amazon's version of a virtual machine. So EC2 could be it's just a virtual machine, but it could be Windows, it could be Linux, it could be Kubernetes. That for EC2s is just their virtual machine, which is OS. So on that particular VM, you can spin up anything on there from an operating system standpoint. Now I'm gonna do more Amazon type thing and start breaking down those individual components and technologies. So once again, I'm definitely going to get into those. But yeah, this is kind of architectural diagram, especially from security compliance. You want to kind of figure out what's going on. And two is, what are they using? What's encrypted? Where's your data coming at? Can the web tier go strictly to the database tier? Where's talk to the app tier? What this is kind of where your networking coming in. What talks to what and what touch what technology can touch other technology. Like I would never let the web server go directly to my database, right? I want to go through the app server. Why? I have security controls on my app server. We talked about zero trust on study GRC. So microsegmentation, identity of your device coming in, right? So there's a lot of things that's going on. I'll be team replay during my drive tomorrow. Professor Love Diagrams. I appreciate it, Chris Willock. Be safe on your drive. Be safe in Florida, man. That hurricane looks kind of deep. But once again, if you got any questions, put them on there. We're gonna make. But basically, in this one from NIST 800-53, what things are we logging? Theoretically, everything, right? So we're trying to log as much. So once again, we can track the bad guys, track our data, track the good stuff, and two, hopefully, we can track a APT. That's more a struggle security type thing. Advanced persistent using MITRE. As they move around, you might be able to catch them to figure out once again if it's a Russian attack, is it Israel? They have certain movement, and we're going to talk about that MITRE from a TTP standpoint. Helps you figure out what that movement looks like, but you got to log it to be able to figure out what it is, right? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, logging those type of things and figure out what's going on. So let's get going. Super short. Once again, NIST 800-53. I'll go over this every time. NIST, National Institute of Standards. It's ran by the United States Department of Commerce, and it was started by FISMA. Everything usually has to come out from a high-level directive. The high-level directive was Federal Information Security Modernization Act of 2014, aka FISMA, to help and manage cost-effective programs to protect their information and information systems. Here's all the families of NIST 800-53 R5. There's 20 families, so we're touching on them. We're going to touch on all of them, I think. Today, we're going over the third one, which is audit and monitoring. Right, that's one reason I'm a big NIST 800-53 R5 guy is these 20 families make sure you're secure. All right, so if we look at them, we just kind of run through them super quick. Access control, awareness training. We're talking about audit and accountability today. Assessments, configuration management, contingency planning, identification, incident response, maintenance, media protection, physical planning, project management, personnel security, PI processing and transparency, risk assessment, system and service, system and communication, system information integrity, and supply chain risk management. Why did I fly through that? I just want you to know how depth and inclusiveness 800-53R5 is. Most things from your organization will be covered. I do a lot of small companies. A lot of small companies, you're going to take stuff out. You're not going to be doing like all of this at that high level. But the big thing I think in 2024 was from all the hacks is supply chain, third party, and risk assessment. A lot of times since the Casillas hack, what is your third party doing, and are you doing a risk assessment, and are you monitoring them? I think that's the big deal that came out of that from those particular things. Let's see. It's entirely too much APT. Yeah, especially with critical infrastructure. Yeah, facts. I did one on the ports yesterday, talking about port security. I meant to ping you on that to see if you were available. We were talking about port security because that's critical infrastructure. I'm getting brief now about the miracle. Oh, yeah, it went down this week. Oh, wow. I need to do a video on that. Yeah, I did one on the port security because, they strike for 3 days and we were already panic buying it. So that's definitely critical infrastructure. I guess I didn't realize how much the port stuff was already automated. That kind of caught me off guard. Good evening, everybody. Shout out to PBL from the struggle. I appreciate you, Larry. So I'm seeing with double streaming. Facts. Shout out to R Squared, part of the GRC study family. I'm usually over there working out with them a little bit, but shout out to them. Let me check on my LinkedIn. Keep putting those questions in there. We're going to get through it. See what's happening. Yep, I'm always struggle streaming. What did I do with that? That's not what I wanted. I know I saw it. We'll figure it out. Let's keep rolling. Let me. Yeah, you think I would get better at this? Long story short, just looking at the NIST family, we got the control identifier at the top, control name, organizationally defined. Everybody know I do IRS work, so a lot of times I did a couple slides. What is the IRS definition of that requirement? Control enhancements, dig down deeper. Once again, organizationally defined, and any source for additional information. A lot of times, like up here, there's related controls that goes with the main control up there. So that's super common. So we're going to talk about auditing. I usually only pull 5 out of these, so we're going to talk about all of these. And if you want to dig down in each one, usually I just pull 5 out of there. All right, I didn't want to go to. So the -1 is always usually policies and procedures. As a GRC person, you need to understand the policies and procedures for each one of these subfamilies. If not, 800-53, there's NIST CSF, ISO 2701 is popular, CIS is popular. Once again, I do IRS Pub 1075, kind of similar, sits on top of 1075, but you definitely need to understand the policies and procedures. So this family, let's go over these quick subfamilies. Once again, I only did 5 slides. I'm not going to do all 16, but policies and procedure, event logging, content of the audit records, audit log storage capacity, response to an audit logging process failure. We're going to dig down in AU5. That's one where NIST tells us to do it, and we're going to go, no, we're not doing that. We're going to accept that risk, but we're going to dig down into that a little more. Audit record review, analysis, and reporting, audit record reduction and report generation, timestamp. We're going to dig down a little bit in that. Protection of audit information, non-repudiation. If your audit logs say that this has happened, how can you prove nobody changed them in there? All right. So if you ever go to court, which I've never been, how did you say those logs has not been tampered with? Audit record retention, audit record generation, monitor for information, and cross-organizational audit logging. So when you talk about audit and logging, those are all the things from this requirement we need to touch on. All right, so all of those are in there. Some of these are low, some of these are medium, and some of these are high. With logging, I try to do them all to really be quite frank. Why would I want to do all the logging? once again, that's how you figure out what's got stolen, and this helps you track the bad guys. And if you're mature enough, this might help you stop the bad guys before they get your information, right? And we're going to dig down in that a little more too. Talking about Splunk, the big 800-pound gorilla in there. So we're going to touch on that. So once again, at the top, AU policies, we're just going to kind of flow through this. Develop and disseminate to organization level, mission, business process, audit and accountability, address purpose, scope, role, responsibility, and management commitment, coordination among organizational units, consistent with our applicable laws, executive orders, directives, regulation, policy, standard guidelines, and procedure. And a lot of times, from an assessment standpoint and GRC standpoint, that's the first thing we're going to look at in an organization. The cool thing is I deal with a lot of mature organizations, so 99% of them are going to have their policies and procedure. Why? They pay consultants to do that. So what I usually do, if they're a big company, I probably look at 3 policies, right? I'm probably going to look at the incident response policy, risk assessment, configuration management, and probably access control. If I look at those and they pass, I'm not going to look at all 20 of them because I know, once again, they're a mature organization. Now, when you're small, I might have you zip all those up and send on a PBO, right? I need to check you. You got 3 dudes in a garage, right? So what level of assessment would you be working on and what you're going to be looking at? But once again, the AU-1 is policies and procedures. So the procedures of that is, what are we logging? How are we logging? What technologies are we using? Splunk? Are we using AWS CloudWatch? Are we using AWS? Their Elk Cache version of that. They have their own logging. So how are we logging? What are we logging? Are we moving them to a different system? A lot of times in the old days, you left your logs where it was at. But if that operating system got hacked, VM, EC2, Windows version, if the bad guy got on there, they usually would delete your log. So that's why you move them a lot of times, right, while you're doing the log. So that's part of the game. So let's keep rolling. Once again, we're just going to kind of flow through these. Event logging. Identify the types of events capable of logging to support. Coordinate the event logging function with other organizational entities. Requiring audit related information to guide and inform. In an event is an observable occurrence in the system. Types of event that require logging are those events that are significant and relevant to the security of systems and privacy of individuals. Event logging also supports specific monitoring and auditing needs. We talked about that. Event types include password changes, failed logins, failed access to the system, security or privacy attribute changes, administrative uses, PIV credential usage, right? So those are some of the things you would change. And here's some of the things I pulled from the IRS, Pub 1075, what they want you to log, right? Where it says organizationally defined here, all right? So we're talking about the organizationally defined parameters, organizationally defined audit records, retention requirements. So what is that organization? That organization for this particular one is IRS. IRS Pub 1075 is their NIST, right, that sits on top. So what is the IRS asking you to require? And I do this a lot for a lot of small organizations. They go, okay, that's cool. What should we log? Right, okay, you say log it. The IRS tells you this part, what they want you to log, right? All access or attempts to FTI. FTI is Federal Tax Information Systems, including the identity of each user and device. So when you log on, if I log it, I need to put your user ID. If you're OS, Windows, Linux, right? What is that workstation name? What's that MAC address? I need to put that in there so I know where it came from, right? Log off activities, activities that modify, bypass, or negate IT security safeguards. Security relevant actions associated with processing FTI. User generation report containing FTI, any interaction with FTI through an application. So application logging, shout out Purple Team. So what in your application are you logging, right? We talking about infrastructure. Then you got application logs. Then you got cloud logs, right? Because that's shared responsibility. So who's responsibility for logging what? And you as a GRC person or assessor, you need to make sure those things are happening, right? So you need to review the logs, look at the app, at least interview people and ask them if they're logging. Password changes, creation of modification of groups, privileged user access. I really want to monitor what my DBAs are doing, what my SAs are doing, what's my cloud engineers doing, what's the security team doing. Hopefully a lot of security team is read only, but I got some security engineers, right? So what are they changing on systems? What are they accessing systems? Creating or deleting files, change permission or privileges, command line changes and queries, changes made as an application or database, system and data interaction, opening and closing of files, right? So those are some of the basic things, which is still at 1,000-foot level. So what does that organization want you to log? Those are requirements. Those are security requirements. I think a lot of people say, what are security requirements? Those are security requirements, especially GRC requirements, right? Governance, risk, and compliance. Why? Those are the requirements that the IRS say are we doing. Me as a GRC analyst, I need to make sure this is happening, right? I need to assess that to see that those things are happening, right? So a lot of people say, what requirements are there? I got a lot of killer DBAs, but they don't know what the security requirements are. Me as a GRC person, as a senior guy, as an old guy, I give them the requirements to say, I need you to make that happen. Then when the auditors come in, I need to say, okay, these were the requirements. This is what we made happen. And this is our procedures for logging. So the auditors can come in and check it out, right? You don't want the junior auditors lurking around. They get confused. I want to tell them what to do. I want to keep them within guardrails. I'm controlling junior external auditors, right? I'm the senior guys internal. I need to make sure those guys stay on point, right? The more they start digging, the more stuff they're trying to find. I want to say, here's the requirements. Here you need to go, right? This is where you need to be. Let me help you. I already got this document. Here's our SharePoint site. Only certain people can get to it. I'm going to call down a Splunk. Let me get you a view on Splunk so you can look at those logs. I'm going to show you where the log off activity is in Splunk. I'm going to show you where the security related, this is our FTI. When we send it to FTI, right, we actually tokenize it or mask it, right? We don't want to show people a social security number or a tax return in the logs. We just want to show some X's, but we can tell you what record that was in the log and trace it back to the database, trace it back to the timing of it, right? So once again, that's where the GRC, the security, and then the admin or the engineer, how we work together, right? PBO ain't making no changes, right? PBO giving requirements and PBO is telling people what to do, right? So I think a lot of people ask me, what does that look like in real life? That's what it looks like, right? Contents of audit records, we talked about that, right? Ensure the audit records contain information that establishes the following: what time, what type of event occurred, when the event occurred, where the event occurred, source of the event, the outcome of the event, identity of any individuals, subject or object entities associated with an event. A lot of times we have automated process. That automated process has a user or an ID to it. So we want to be able to trace back that this automated process did something. A lot of hackers take over automated processes, right? So we got to make sure if they do, we can track those, right? If somebody sends an automated process the wrong code to help it steal some data, right? When I was at a large company, we figured out that our cron job was running as root. What does that mean? Does that mean anything people put in the cron job, it could do anything it wanted to do? So if you told it to drop the disk in a script file, it would, all right? So number one, that's a finding. None should run as a root. So we changed it where the script would actually get the identity it needs. Then the cron job would just run the process, not give the process authority to do things it shouldn't do. But right, you as a GRC analyst, security person, security engineer, need to understand what permissions are you giving events. You don't want to give it, we call it overpowered automated jobs. I see that a lot. Developers and engineers get lazy. We just gonna give it DBA privileges. We just gonna give it root privileges and let it do anything it wants. No, you're not. Why not? Because if a bad guy puts something in there, right, he could do what he want to do, right? We got to check our pipeline. But sometimes if a hacker gets in your pipeline and drops something in your cron job, drops something in your pipeline, you don't want to have too much permission to obviously to let it to do what it shouldn't be to do. What we talking about least privileges, right? You only want to give the job the thing we need to do. What's up, counsel? Glad you can join me. So once again, we're giving it the content. So let's keep rolling. Once again, we're just gonna go over a few of these. I don't want to put I think it was 10 subfamilies in there. Audit log storage capabilities. Log storage capabilities to accommodate. Organization consider the type of audit logging to be performed. The audit log process requirements when the log storage capacity. Allocating sufficient audit log storage capacity reduces the likelihood of such capacity being exceeded or resulting in potential loss of reduction of audit log capability. Basically, you don't want the audit log to fill up, right? So it won't be able to log. So and that's coming up. So a lot of times now we have our I can't even think what product we use it. So if it got up to 90%, it would send the security team an email and it would actually log it, and it would actually send the engineers an email saying we need more disk capacity. So the odds of us hopefully filling the disk up will be small. All right. So, and two, a lot of times is, especially on that machine, we're compressing those logs and putting them in CloudWatch and sending them to Splunk. And we'll talk about that. So theoretically, we wouldn't be filling up where it was running at anyway. We're talking about the logging server and the logging infrastructure, right? So timestamp, use the internal clock to generate timestamp for audit records, record the time for audit records that meet the organizational requirements, use coordinated time. So what we do is, and everybody does that, we sync. DoD has a time server. Why? Because you want all the servers on the same time. Because if you off a couple minutes and you moving 1 billion records, you won't be able to line the transaction of how it came in your system and not. All right. So if you got to keep the time synced up, so you can say, okay, it came in the company firewall, hit the load balancer, hit the EC2, and went to the application server, and went to the database. You want to be able to track that transaction. A lot of times, time steps through your organization, and you have to sync that time up to a standard time. And that, if you look at, that's the STIG. So we're talking about a Windows 2022 server. You see the title, Windows 2022 service must be synchronized with the appropriate DoD time servers. AWS has those. The time servers control the synchronization setting. Synchronization is essential for authentication and auditing purposes. And if you look at the bottom where it says fix, you can configure the system to synchronize with DoD time. Domain join with an NT5 DSS to synchronize the time from other systems in domain by default, right? So once again, that's where the rubber meets the road. Me as a GRC analyst, I probably would look at this, but this is definitely going to go into the Windows system administrator, right? He's going to usually have his Active Directory and groups. He's going to put this in a group, then he's going to put the server in a group, then all the servers are going to be using this setting on all the servers to make sure, we're consistent across the organization. You as a GRC person would look at that GPO to make sure this is set in the GPO to make sure we're consistent across the org. And long story short is you can scan for this. So you probably use your Nexus or your Rapid7, get that scan, and it will tell you if your settings are on or off, right? So we dig into that, but that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's the STIG setting we want to actually put on our EC2s that are Windows. Hopefully that's Windows 2022. We get our GPO setting in there. You as a GRC person would validate that these settings are on for all the Windows and actually all the workstations, right? When you do your assessment. And we're going to talk about that in the future. What does that look like in real life? What would that look like in, what's up, Demond? Glad you could join me. Shout out Casual Economist, definitely one of the day ones. So yeah, so that's what you want to look at. I got that super tiny, but yeah, so definitely the settings in the GPO in real life, that's what you would look at. And a lot of these we would be using Rapid7, Nexus Scan, or my other favorite one, Qualsys. You can scan for DoD settings or what you believe is the best practices for your organization. then you as a GRC person would look at the data and figure out if it's setting or if it's not. You would have a finding and when can you fix it. A lot of times you got to work with the essays because if we set this, we'll break it. Okay, when can we fix it? Right. Shout out Rondo Mondo. Glad you could join me. Non-repudiation. Provide irrefutable evidence that an individual process acting on behalf of an individual has performed. Types of individual action covered by non-repudiation include creating information, sending and receiving messages, approving information. Non-repudiation protects against claim by authors of not having authored certain documents, senders of not having transmitted a message, receivers are not receiving messages. So what does that actually look like? Right. So a lot of times you're actually signing the log file or signing the message with your CAT card or your email cert to let you know that once again it was signed by you and it's non-refutable that you signed it. Right. So how do we do that? A lot of times with us, we put your CAT card in there and you put your PIN and you would get it. For automated transaction, that process that's activated as you is logging. It has keys to make sure nobody's changed it. And two is you would check it to make sure it ran at the time you thought it was run and not ran by the bad guy. But the thing about that is provide irrefutable evidence that the individual or process acting on behalf of an individual has performed. All right, so that was it. So let's keep going. So let's talk about this. Once again, we're looking at the architecture. And CloudWatch is AWS logging. It's usually temporary for 90 days. So what are you logging? Once again, EC2, which is your OS, Windows, Linux, Red Hat, Amazon Linux, whatever you want. Windows 2022, Windows 2019, Windows 2016. If you use auto scaling, it can actually log in there. Your databases, Amazon DynamoDB, which is their NoSQL database. Or if you run an Amazon RD, which is Postgres and MySQL, you can still log to CloudWatch. We know the Elastic containers, those being Docker and Kubernetes. If you got triggers, all of that stuff you can log. From those logs, you can create cool dashboards when the stuff run. Are you getting database transaction failures? For us, are you getting a brute force login? Your EC2, somebody trying to brute force log in 100 times in a minute, right? That's an automated attack. We can show that on our dashboard in red so executives can see it. Executives love seeing dashboards. But two is, once again, we saw the stuff we need to log. We can send it down to CloudWatch and keep those requirements in CloudWatch, which is AWS's kind of one of the default logging. The big daddy is Splunk in the cloud. You see Splunk right over there in the red. So we got our CloudWatch over here in AWS. Then we could pipe it to our Splunk cloud. All right, then the Splunk cloud has way more metrics, has way more functionality. And two is you usually give it a lot more, like we talked about, space so you never run out. So over here, so if a bad guy comes over here and hacks our Windows and our Linux box, we already pushed our log files to Splunk so the bad guy wouldn't get it. And hopefully we can find out that the bad guy's movements a little off in Splunk. Then we can come back and get him before he gets to the database. All right. Once again, the MITRE, TPT attacks and kind of what's going on. But the focus of all of that is NIST 800-53, what you need to audit, what you got to keep track of auditing and where you need to go. So once again, let me hit those requirements. Once again, those are the IRS requirements. Right there, I'm going to drop the link down if anybody wants to come up. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Let's see, Black Dub. Shout out to Black Dub for joining me. Let's see what Regine got for me. So that's why logging is so important, especially now. Shout out to Struggle Security talking about the APTs are out there hot. Right, so we need to track them in there and hopefully block them with the MITRE. We're going to dig down a little more MITRE, just touching our feet. What is usual retention period for logs? IRS wants 7 years, usually 5. I do a lot of IRS work, so they want 7. Usually I see 5 years for other government agencies. But once again, I try to use, because I do so much IRS work, I try to do 7. That's a lot of log files. So depending on, the cool thing though with AWS is Glacier, you can put log files out there for a penny a terabyte. Now it might take you 12 hours to get them back, but they're it's a lot cheaper to store log files now. So you could just ingest them back into your Splunk, then Splunk can get them out right. So usually we try to keep a year online. The rest of it we put in Glacier, and I think it's like 3 cents a petabyte. It was something super cheap, but now 7 years regime for IRS, so that's what I recommend. Usually 5 years for other government agencies. I see a lot of private agencies try to do 3. I think that's too short. It used to be bad guys was on your network for about a year and a couple months before you figured it out. Now I think technology is getting better, so I think that time has went down. But once again, I do a lot of IRS work, so for me, Regine, that's I try to do 7 years. Once again, we're looking at some of the requirements on there. That's what the IRS says they want. Then 2 is we actually looked at what one of the requirements for what you were logging in the OS using your in 2020. This is and how you would set it up, right? So I think when I looked, it was 30 log requirements on the 2022 databases, right? Log in, log out, privilege account. So it tells you everything what to log on your in your STIG when you actually look at it per that thing. And if you look down in the red, that's AU8 for that particular sync. I think AU8 for us was the synchronization. Yep, timestamp. You want to make sure your time is synced up. So once again, that's kind of how that requirements roll back up into your policy. So if you see down there in the yellow, it's an AU-8. Then that rolls up to policy timestamp. So that's kind of how that works when people ask me rubber in the road, what policy it rolls up. So that's kind of connections. You see that. That's why I'm a STIG guy. Shout out to Struggle. I know he's not a big STIG fan. I don't know if he's still on. I know he got to take care of the babies. Shout out to him. My kids got kids, but shout out to him. Shout out to Ty. Let's see. Should anybody want to come up? You coming up, Regine? I was professional. You should come up, Regine. Let's see. Shout out to my man Larry. But yeah, so that's Amazon's version of that for AWS CloudWatch. A lot of times they keep them out there for 90 days. Then they push them to Splunk or Elk Cache or whatever your organization is using for their SIM. And now requirements for federal, they want you to have a SIM, right? Being Splunk or Elk Cache or I'm trying to think. Those are kind of the big ones. Splunk, Elk Cache. I'm sure it's a CloudWatch. CloudWatch has their API version of that too. So until once again, put them in CloudWatch. Get your dashboards. I'm gonna start doing a couple. I've been saying this forever. Live labs where we can create some dashboards coming out of Splunk so we can see stuff we want to look at. All right, and as a security engineer, I've done dashboards, done log files coming from log analytics. They were calling QQL. What are you selecting out your database to put in a dashboard, right? So you can select certain events, certain type, certain owners from privilege accounts. So how do you have those tagged? So you can look at privilege accounts. So you can look at actions from a certain project. You might have a project that goes to a certain city, state, company, right? So how do you separate it by project users? So you want to be able to slice it, dice it in many ways. Too, especially from a security person. Make sure you hit that. I appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like. Salute to Aiken. People on the chat, I appreciate that. But yeah, we just wanted to touch in on the auditing, aka logging. Let's go back up to the top to the how the sub families of that. And there it is. And we touched on, I think, probably half of that. but the big guys, non-repudiation, time steps. Oh, and the thing I wanted to talk about, AU5, response to audit logging failure. So the requirement is if your log fills up, you're supposed to stop processing. I work for the Department of Revenue for the state of Indiana. We got $34 billion in 3 months. If our log files fill up, we're not stopping because the log server filled up, right? So we told the IRS, we're not doing that. Response to audit logging process, they want you to stop so you never miss any logs. We were like, we're not stopping. We got to get this 34 billion with a big B. So if our log server fills up, so what we did is we said we're accepting the risk of the log server. The mitigating control is, right, we have different products that would check the process, check the disk, check the health of the organization, right? So those are things we said was mitigating control, but we told the IRS, no. If the if the log server fill up, if the log server having problems, whatever it is, we're not stopping getting this tax money. Shout out to I said what's up, Dave. Yeah, so some of these as an organization, we talked about that. You can accept the risk. You as a GRC person says, nah, that's too much risk for what we're trying to do. We got enough compensating controls. So, and we're talking about this. You can accept the risk, right? So here's our risk acceptance. All right, we're accepting the risk as an organization. So organization acceptance usually means that log is across all our organization for the IRS. So we're accepting that risk as an org. Sometimes you might do something as an org, but for some reason the project can't do that, right? So there's risk acceptance and risk exemption. Risk exemption means a project or a subdivision of org wants to not do something we want to do as an org, right? This from IRS, we saying that's a risk acceptance because we're not doing that in any part of our org, and we're accepting that risk organizational wide. So that's kind of one of the differences. So I always get that question a lot. What is the risk acceptance? The organization, the IRS says if your web server fills up or something happens to it, you should stop processing your business processing until you get that figured out. We were like, nah, we ain't doing that. We collecting this $34 billion and we're just gonna figure it out on the fly. And two, though, once again, these are mitigated control. We think the odds of that happening is very, very tiny. Right. Once again, we're checking the health, we're checking the disk space, we're checking the CPU, we're checking the memory. So we had a lot of things on that server we were checking to make sure if that happens, it would be something, super small. The two a lot of times is we were taking those logs and sending them to Splunk. So if the server's down, we could queue up the logs right until we got the server up, then those logs would get pushed. So we thought with that, the odds of us losing some would be very small. Right. So that's one thing, and we're talking about that is if something goes down and you queuing it, how long can you queue it? If we were down for 2 days, will your queue fail? Then that would actually make your business stop. So if you were queuing and you never could connect, are you just going to start overwriting your queue? You don't want your queue to fill up because that will stop your business. But that's some things to talk about, some things to add to your risk assessment. And from a DR and COOP perspective, a lot of times when you queue stuff, how long can you queue it if something went down? And if you need to move it offline, does it need to go in the same order? Can you just put them down there and they would get in there, right? So those are different things, more of a Q thing and DR issue, but part of auditing and accountability. When you audit and your server fill up, what would you do, right? So once again, here's the main subfamilies for your auditing. Once again, we talked about these policy procedures. We went over a few of these: event logging, audit logging capacity, the response of audit log process failures. Our response is we're gonna keep processing and getting this money. All right, that's our process, right? So, so that's how we would do it. Let's see. Shout out to Justin Williams on LinkedIn, just checking out a few people. Incident response analyst. Gonna have to get with him. Probably interview with him. My man Jeremy. Appreciate the support on LinkedIn. I don't usually do a lot on LinkedIn. Come check me out on YouTube, but now shout out to LinkedIn. They were down yesterday, so I wasn't happy. They said, "Yeah, we're down." So I like, hey, you gotta do better, LinkedIn. They didn't have a DR. we need to figure out if they were logging stuff to figure out what happened. So once again, I'll hang out a little longer. See if anybody had any questions for me. I'm gonna drop the link again if anybody wants to come up. If you want to talk about something specific or wants me to do a specific video, you can drop that in there. 9 times out of 10, I probably already got a video on that. I think I got 70 hours in this and compliance videos in my playlist on my YouTube channel. So 9 times out of 10, I got that in there. There's a few couple compliances I don't have in there. I'll probably add, but the majority of the big ones I have in there: HIPAA, High Trust, CGIS, which is state police, IRS. I did one mine for ITAR. If you're moving government ammunition stuff, what's your ITAR requirement? So once again, I got a ton of GRC videos. For those who don't know me, which I think most people here know me, but for those who don't know me, Professor Black Ops, I've been in IT for 33 years. I've been in cybersecurity for 17. My claim to fame is I worked at Department of Defense for 10 years, aka DFAS, which is the financial arm of DOD. I work for the state of Indiana, Department of Revenue, report to the IRS. That's why you see a lot of IRS stuff in there. I did that for a decade. So I'll probably do a video of that. I think I stayed both of those places a little too long, but shout out to me. I'm comfortable. Appreciate the info. Would definitely check you out on YouTube channel. Appreciate you, Jeremy. Like I said, I'm trying to do a little more things on LinkedIn. Shout out to my man. Salute to PBO. And the NIST content, getting my right from zero to hero. Okay, shout out to, let me know if I can do anything for you. Reach out, ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. I used to be a professor in life for 10 years. I taught 10 years at a community college. So you got to give me 48 hours to answer email. That's what professors get. Even though I do not have a PhD, but I did teach for 10 years. I do have a master's degree, though. So we were talking about degrees. I do have a master's degree, and I do have 4 AWS certifications. Get my AWS grind on. So definitely going to start doing more AWS stuff. I've been kind of, I need losing my touch a little bit. So I'm going to lab a little bit and connect that with security and GRC, right? Doing Security Hub, doing AWS config, which is their GRC. We can set up these architectures. Here, we did my little architecture diagram. Then we can scan it with AWS config and say, is this, let me get back up there. Is this IRS compliant? Is this CMC compliant? That's hot, which is DOD. Is this NIST 800-53 compliant? Is this CGIS compliant, right? AWS config have a lot of those blanket requirements. AWS does a lot of government work, so if you pay them, they can give you a scan. And with that scan, again, we can have findings, things we need to fix. Shout out to my man. Definitely going to interview him. Definitely an ISO guru out here. So definitely get it. Let's see. Prof, in short words, why do we do risk assessment? What is the purpose? How to effectively communicate that to business and how easily you recorded it in the risk register. Okay, we can break those down. Shout out to my man. Why do we do risk assessment? So really, and that's an excellent question a lot of times. And I think, and I used to get distracted. A lot of times we building EC2s, we building architectures, we building databases. The C-suite want to know, okay, how much money do we make? And what is the risk of me running this? And what risk are to the organization? Because if we get hacked or it goes down, I need to be able to communicate that to our shareholders, for me, the governor, right? So what is the risk? So when you talk to business people, a lot of times is, what is the risk of us getting hacked, right? What is the risk of us going down, all right? What is the risk of DR? What's the risk of COOP, right? So how much data can we lose? How long can we be down, right? So those type of risk rolls up to upper management, and they need to make decisions on that type of risk, right? So if this database is not up to the current version and there's a couple vulnerabilities in it, what is the risk to the organization? Do I need to take it down for 2 days to update it? Do I need to pay more money? The management needs to know what those risks are so they can figure out the best decisions to be able to make as an organization. Right? The higher you go up in the chain, the less they want to know about technology. All right. It's kind of how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost me, and what's the odds of what's the odds of it's happening. All right. Then that's it. And I struggle with that. How do you communicate technology requirements to business people? I promise you, most CEOs don't give a shit if you run an Oracle, SQL Server, Amazon, NoSQL. They just want to know, can you do this business processes and is it profitable? Then two, since I do government work, are there any findings or things that can get us hacked or fined by the IRS or fined by HSS for HIPAA? Right. Then two is the other part is this infrastructure usually goes to a business function, right? Usually when you go up to the C-suite, you don't talk to technology. So when I was at the state and we take state taxes, one of our business function, which was number one, is collecting state taxes to fund the state. So the risk is this database could not be upgraded, all right? And it's a high vulnerability. So it's not the database vulnerability, it's we can't collect state taxes. And this is the risk that this database caused to this business function, right? So when you go up to C-suite, you don't talk technology, you talk business function. This database is going to stop us from collecting taxes, which is $34 billion in the state of Indiana within about a 3.5 month window. Okay, do we need to upgrade? Okay, if we got risk, what are our compensating controls so that risk will be lowered? All right, so how do you do that? Shout out to Jupiter. See what he got. One of the day ones. A lot of risk dangers you have to explain and you have to. Oh, facts. I'm glad you mentioned that. You're not making decisions if they have to preach to what to do. No, that's facts. Because a lot of those requirements are legal requirements, right? So when you talk about IRS, if they say you have to do it, if you don't, you would get fined. That is a legal requirement between you and the IRS. That's why the IRS gives you their data so you can collect your state taxes, right? And he's 100% right. So this not, if you're going to get hacked or breached, what is the probability of you getting that, right? Then a lot of times that'll get you more funding or not funding. So, and he's right. I talk to legal all the time. Not as much as I get a little older, but yeah, all the time I'm in there with legal because legal, once again, those requirements you get, especially from STIG, those requirements from FSMA or DOD, those are legal requirements. If you're not meeting those, you could get fined by the government, right? So how do you talk about your fine? I appreciate you, man. But yeah, we're going to talk about that. I got a BIA, business impact analysis. And so once again, this architecture usually goes to certain business functions. So part of that is your organization needs to rank your business functions in order of priority. Why? Your number one function gets the most money, it gets DR, it gets the best database, and make sure it gets patched. Right. So that's why you need to rank it. Because you don't have infinite money. So how do you make decisions on the ranking of your business function of your organization? And those business function sits on top of your web server, your app server. You collecting taxes, you're getting audit information, you're getting business taxes, right? So each one of those sits on top of architecture. So a lot of times when you talk to management, you say you need money for a database, they don't hear that. If you say we can't collect $34 billion this year and the governor is going to be mad and come seeing the commissioner, which is the president of the org, then people pay attention, right? Say, yeah, the governor's not going to like it if we can't collect taxes. If we can't get this $34 billion and fund the whole state, right, then people pay attention in the meeting, right? If you said, oh, the Aurora database, we're a couple versions down, ain't nobody paying attention. You tell them we can't get this $34 billion for this, our number one business function, and people are like, oh, what do we need to do to make that happen, right? So And once again, that's senior level conversation, right? Your upper room conversations, right? So a lot of people know I programmed for the first 10 years of my life. I love programming. I just make more money doing cyber. And I'm fat. I like to eat well. So that's really how I got into cyber, right? I started as a programmer, then I became a DBA because my programs connected to databases. Then I got decent. Then I became a web admin. I did Apache and Tomcat, right? So those skills kind of stacked on each other. So when I got in cybersecurity, by happenstance, I understood that infrastructure, most stuff there. So I could talk to each one of those divisions. So now that like Amin brought up is what's my conversation? I could talk to the tech guys, but what's my conversation to management? When I talk to the CEO, CIO, when I talk to the commissioner that reports to the governor, and I'm going to interview those people on this channel. I reached out to them. They were cool. They said they would definitely let me interview them. So what does that conversation when you talk to the money people, right? The budget people, right? The higher I go up, the less technical I talk, right? So that's one big thing. That was my man Jupiter said. I'm doing a course on Udemy, finance and analysis, and I advise any cyber guy or compliance to take it. Balance income sheet will tell you everything how a company's budgeting. No, that's true. That's true. That's one reason I got an MBA, so I'm right there with you, Jupiter. So quite familiar with income statement, balance sheet. For me, BIA, business impact analysis, and like you said, how that rolls up actually to the money when the finance guys talk. And that's one thing when you start talking to Oracle, and I used to work for a company was spending $5 million with Oracle because we had so many databases. I was like, wow, we spending $5 million on technology. So they kind of threw me off when you talking about big companies. You talking about 10,000 VMs. What's the cost of that? Right? What's the cost of your infrastructure? $5-10 million. So what did the course teach you in relation to a tech role? Shout out to Aiken. Digging in a little. Is it easier for a programmer to get into cyber? I think so. The reason I say I think so is a lot of time it's called Purple Team. Secure programming is a thing most people forget. So that's the first thing I did is took the STIG and the IRIS requirements and took them to the developers. That conversation was brutal. So I think from that knowledge, uh, Purple Team is application security. And a lot of times the first thing people attack because it's outward facing is your web application. Right. So I think from that level, that understanding definitely helped me get into security. But hell, we talking about 15 years ago, to be honest. So I like to dig in a little bit about that and think about that. Because a lot of times now we're so fixated on the infrastructure. A lot of times we don't even talk about app security. We so securing the Linux, the Windows, you see it right there, the Aurora, the database, networking, load balancer. We don't even really get to the application security as much as I think we need to get to. Don't teach you anything on tech. It teaches you finance and how companies balance sheet and cash flow. Okay. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Like I said, I think that's a hidden gem. A lot of times when I ask those questions, people frown up because I don't think people are used to getting the OWASP top 10 or talking about how are you connecting from API call or web service call or we don't even run SOAs anymore, service oriented architecture. This old stuff, RPC, remote procedure call, right? Those are old technologies. So when I see them, I know they're old. So that's a good question. I need to dig down into that a little more and kind of dig into that. So I'll hang out a little longer. Let me check on my LinkedIn. Gotta give my people some thumbs up on LinkedIn. But one thing I'm gonna start showing, and somebody asked me about that, is the architectural diagram from a security perspective. What does that look like? And from a GRC person in security architecture, what does that look like? And the GRC, do you do a risk assessment on architecture when you look at it? What things are you looking for? Number one, encryption, the DR site, database encryption at rest in transit, hopefully memory, which is coming out, being a little more prevalent. So those are some of the things off the bat, just looking at it and just kind of digging down into it. So here I drop the link and see if anybody else want to come up. So I'm rounding it up, gonna make it a smooth hour. Like I said, I just wanted to touch on that this 800-53, the audit and accountability. Let me get to that slide real quick. I like that slide right there. These are the security firms we just touched on. I think it's 14 of those. It skipped a couple of numbers, but once again, those are the requirements and actually legal requirements the DOD or the IRS says we need to be doing. And this is the specific what the IRS was looking for there in those requirements that they wanted you to log. FTI, once again, is federal tax information. I did that for a decade. Shout out to the IRS Pub 1075. That's actually how I got hired. The companies I work with touch IRS data, so I'm kind of the SME in that for those organizations. So that's one thing people ask me if I thought about doing a course. Would probably be doing IRS Pub that sits on top of NIST and probably CGIS. Those are actually state compliances that are hidden gems a lot of people are not aware of. So I probably definitely would touch on those. A couple people asked me that. So I almost forgot I had a presentation because I did one yesterday. I'm out of sorts, so I need to get it together. So try to do a few more lives. Long story short, I'm trying to get my monetization back. Me and YouTube have a slight difference of opinion, but so they told me how to change the way I was doing some of my pre-recorded, which is cool. A lot of that was my fault. I was taking news articles and I wasn't adding enough value to those news articles, so they hit me across the hand and took my monetization away for a couple months. They told me I can reapply. Cool thing though is you need 4,000 watch hours. I still think I'm at 300 and 700. I'm sorry, 3,700. So if I did, for a month, I could get 300, and that'll give me 4,000 watch hours, and I'll apply. So I'm going to do that for 2025. So you'll see it, and I probably do some memberships, and my memberships will actually dig a little deeper into the architecture, more one-on-one, smaller groups. So let me know if that's something y'all be interested in. Super low cost, PBO ain't trying to break nobody. He just get a little for the barbecue fun, a little barbecue on Sunday. PBO need to go for a diet. This A1C wasn't looking good, so I might have to cut out the barbecue fun a little bit. A1C wasn't looking good. I have to tighten up on that. Once again, drop any more questions. I'm gonna hang out for a couple more minutes if anything. If anybody wants to come up, I drop the link. Don't be scared of PBO. It's all good. So I love how I talk about myself in the third person like I'm an athlete. PBO's having a great day. But yeah, once again, my hidden gem is the Pub 1075. A lot of organizations are doing tax work, and the IRS just got a shitload of money. So I think a lot of people are looking for Pub 1075 people. Cyber from Fire. Thanks for joining. So yeah, I have to get it together. So so we're gonna go through all the families. Let me bring up the families. We're gonna get going through all of those in the NIST 800-53, keeping them short. We're gonna get that down. And for me, it helps me to go through those, to be honest. Because the R5 has a few things and it helps me dig more into there, right? So got the access control awareness. Next week, which will be the big one a lot of people talk about, is the assessment, authorization, and monitoring. So we go into that next week and talk a little bit more about assessments. And I might go through a quick assessment of how I will look at a vendor and what do I look for a vendor. RFP, RFY, and RFI, request for information for a vendor. RFP, request for a proposal. A lot of times I work for companies that request proposals, and sometimes I work for companies that bid on those type of things, right? So I keep saying I'm going to go to Upworks with a small team, and we're going to bid on some work, and we'll just do it, and people can get experience. I've been saying that for a year, though. Don't put pressure on me. I'll put pressure on the old guy, but I think that's one thing could be cool. If we won something and did some work for a small company. I used to do policies and procedures for a lot of HIPAA work, which I thought was crazy. So we're making it happen. Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, I was reading something. But yeah, that's the 10 families, the 20 families we're going to go over slowly but surely and make that happen. Oh, let's see. What's up with CMC? Nothing. I think it's about to come into effect. It's the new requirement from DOD. I'm usually a NIST 853R5 and a STED guy, but CMC's supposed to go in effect. I think at the end of the year, they're gonna actually, um, they're gonna actually phase it in over 3 or 4 years. That'll be a lot of months for companies to jump on. So it's happening. They're phasing it in over 3 years, and um, I was actually talking to a couple guys. This young guy had a company, so I was going to reach out to him. I was on Study GRC. He had CMC. We connected on LinkedIn, so I was going to see if could get some side work for him and give that to some people on Study GRC, and I just manage it. But I don't know. I say that like I got a lot of time, and I'm always tired. I'll be 57 this year, man. I'm almost 60. I'm running out. But now let me know, Rondo Mono, if that's answer your question. I think CMC's on track. It's ramping up. I think it's supposed to be early next year. It goes into effect, but they're phasing in over 3 years. I'm in one of the Discord. It's a lively conversation on that. How much of your day is paperwork versus engineering and architecture? My day is mostly paperwork now. I'm thinking about changing that. I'll go back. Long story short is when you do engineering architecture work, especially as an engineer, when production goes down, you're on call and people yell at you. I went to GRC because I can do paperwork. I can do compliance and I can do assessments and tell them what their problem is if we're doing IRS, or shout out to Rondo Mondo if we're doing CMC on that architecture. So my day really now is all paperwork, which is cool. I could do a remote, which you can do engineering from remote. So, but now most of my day is all paperwork. I do very little engineering from that level. The other reason why is people take their engineering very personable. So I was getting in shouting matches with people. So I think people felt that I was attacking the architecture. So now I just say, this is your architecture. I'll tell if it's IRS compliant, CMC compliant, why it's not, the findings, and these are my recommendations to get it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it unless you ask me. Because a lot of CTOs, from my point, they were taking that personal. So I appreciate you, R Squared. Thanks for joining. So let me know if that answered your question. Yeah, but mine's all paper. And for me, I like that to a certain point, because I just review contracts. I review IRS stuff. I make my recommendation. I do policies and procedures. I tell people what the gap is. So like in my day now, it's all paperwork. I keep thinking I want to go back in engineering. That's why I got my AWS certs to build stuff like that. Then let people put apps on it and talk about disaster recovery. Talk about how much data you can lose, what regions you can spin up. Elastic load balancer versus application load balancer. This is standard 3-tier architecture with a master/slave database. Right, but I just do paperwork. I really enjoy that. But the cool thing though, I think paperwork guys get fired before engineering guys get fired though. So that's probably my only issue in that. And engineering guys usually get paid more than paperwork guys. So that's why I kind of flip back and forth. But now, for now, I do mostly paperwork. Look at paperwork, build paperwork, do assessments on paperwork. Once again, what's the gap in the policy and procedure? What's your gap in its architecture, right? This is paper. I just write on the paper. I don't build it. All right. So if we have to roll over from Aurora to the read replica and then change a read replica to the primary, how much time is that going to take up? And if that's longer than an hour, is the business cool with losing that much data? GRC has a part of CMC. Um, yeah, yeah, it's definitely because. Are you talking about pursuing it as far as getting the certifications, or just trying to get it in the mix? But yeah, CMC I think is gonna be hot. I think it's oh yeah, I would do it because those I don't think those certifications are costly. The problem though is right now I think it's kind of hard to get into the CMC ecosystem. Number one, the big guys are eating all that money. The big guys, Arthur Anderson, the big companies. There's 34 3PLs out there, which is third party assessors. So I think they're getting all that work currently. So you have to get the cert on and probably work for a 3PL, which is third party assessor. Um, the two Rondo Mondo, if you want to talk about it, we can do a 15-20 minute video chat. We can do it here. A lot of times I just do it on LinkedIn. A lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn and they have their video chat, which is pretty good. So most of the time I give people 15-20 minutes. They want to dig down into specific. And I tell them this is PBO tech now. This ain't gospel. This is my take. I usually do a lot of thinking employment wise, especially different compliance wise. So if you want to reach out and connect and talk 15 minutes, let me know. I'll definitely give that to you if you want it. But no, I think it's good. But I think getting on like anything, it's going to be a little tough. I think the 3PLs are dominating that currently. One of my younger homies that was on, he was looking into that. I wish he would have stayed on so I could get his in. But Chris Whitlock, he was really delving in the CMC. That's like say how I met him and we kind of chopped it up. So the certification wouldn't hurt you. I don't. Once again, I don't think it was super costly. But we could dig down more. I think, yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. You know my government name out there. Let me know. If not, I can just highlight it. I think it's up here. I think I did it. Did I? I didn't show. Did I show the welcome on there? Let me know. I think we're connected on LinkedIn. Oh, there it is. There I is with my phone. I need to update. You see me, Rondo Mondo? I got it on the screen. You see it? That's me with the flip phone. That's like 2010. I need to upgrade my photo. I like it. I'm in a suit and I look skinny. Shout out to me. Let me know, Rondo Mondo, if you can see that on the screen. That's me. You can see I'm probably the only hot out there with the fake phone. And two, if you do GRC or something, it'll come up under that. Yeah, just reach out to me. We can definitely check it out. Reach out to my man Larry too. He got some stuff. Been a while since B2B been on. Yep, he just landed one. He working on Snowflake that got hacked. I was teasing now, but shout out to the young lion. Yep, he got a job. I was gonna fly down to Atlanta, man. I ain't been to Atlanta in a while. I need to go down there and network. But yeah, reach out to me, Rondo Mondo. We could chop it up. I'm usually free during the day between my meetings. So we can chop it up in 15-20 minutes. I can give you my 2 cents on it. There I use. There is my go. So if you need to reach out to me, that's me. And also ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. LinkedIn probably be the easiest. I'm usually pinging on in one day or another and reading stuff. I at least try to check on it twice a day out there while I'm out there. Trying to get up to 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. So that's kind of one of my 2024 goals that I'm not going to reach. I think I'm I ain't too far. I'm like 1800, so I'm not too far. So yeah, I was trying to get 4,000 on YouTube and 2,000 on LinkedIn. I don't think I'm gonna get none of that, but it's all good. So that's me. Can I pin that? I'm not gonna pin that. But yeah, that's me, Rondo Mondo. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Everybody have a, I don't know. You know, I've been talking about that forever. I can stop laughing at me. I gotta get, man. I was gonna start the membership, then they demonetized me. They can threw my game out, so I haven't recovered yet from that. So yeah, I should have done that. Shout out to my man, Tech G. We were talking about how he does his courses and doing them a little different. Long story short, I used to do Moodle training for a friend of mine who's a lawyer. So I was actually thinking about, which is an open source training site where you can do tests and quizzes. And I used to do that when I was teaching in the university. They used Canvas and what's the big dog on there that costs too much money. But they use Canvas, which is excellent. I think of the big dog. So I've done about 3 learning management systems for university. So I'm comfortable with them. So, but long story short, I've been, like I said, talking about. That's what Aiken laughed at. I don't know, man. I'm old. I'm blaming it on oldness. I need to get it on this back on this CISP studying. I'm trying, PBO trying. But once again, I appreciate everybody for joining me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. We put my little LinkedIn up there. And shout out to the people for joining me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to make that a habit in there. I think I might do me a Facebook PBO page and link to it. I don't know what I would do different on Facebook though. So I'm just trying to get my monetization back on YouTube and kind of go from there and keep it rolling. Once again, I've been in IT for 30 plus years, more like 33. I've been in cybersecurity about 15, 17 years. I currently work as a GRC analyst. My specialty is IRS Pub 1075. I make sure we comply in that. I work with the different teams. I work with engineers. I work with CISOs and CIOs on stuff like that. So I report to the CISO. CISO. So I have reported to CISOs and directors, and depending on how small the company is. Once again, shout out to my man. Just talking about risk. I think that's definitely a senior level conversation. Remember, this infrastructure is done because of a business function. The business and the people with money care about the business function, not the infrastructure underneath. Right. Once again, if you can't collect taxes for the state of Indiana, and that's $34 billion in 4 months, that's the business function they care about, not the Aurora database, not the EC2, not the AWS. What's stopping this business function for us collecting money? Now, if it don't work, they care, right? But if it works and everything's smooth, they don't care. Once again, I appreciate everybody for joining me. Reach out if you need anything. I'm Professor Black Ops. I'm out. You see it. Let's get it. Everybody have a good hump day. Let's see. Okay, got one more real quick. Not sure if you answered this already, but how much paperwork are you having to do from a day-to-day basics? It could be a lot. Sometimes it's not much, but sometimes I might have to work on a 800-page SSP, system security plan. So there's always some type of paperwork, or I'm reviewing some type of architecture, or looking at RFP, RFI. So yeah, it could be a lot of paperwork. Some months because we might have to get a SSP out to the government, the IRS, to a client. A client might be asking for a certain paperwork they need. So I work with the staff, so we will split the paperwork because the SSP could easily be 800 pages, right? Now we talk about automation. We're using some spreadsheets, some tabs. We're doing some mail merges, right, to make it easier. But it could be a lot of paperwork. Then some days, Aiken is kind of like, I'm chilling. I'm chilling, right? But that's how it ebbs and flows. You got to do a lot of stuff, or you a little slow today, right? So it depends on it. So it ebbs and flows. Like it could be 3 weeks where I'm working overtime. Well, I don't get overtime, but I'm working. Then other days I'm like, I'm gonna go for a walk in the middle of the day, right? So that's kind of it. But two, I can gotta remember I'm at a senior level too, so it's a little different for me. Oh, facts. I appreciate that, PB. Yep. I need to solidify that. I should be on combo courses, 11 p.m. Eastern time this Saturday. Shout out to Larry. So he didn't email me back. I need to hit him back on that. So that's my goal. Shout out to combo courses. He definitely been in the game a long time, and I think we're gonna have a great NIST conversation, this 800-53 conversation. That's kind of my sledgehammer, my bailiwick. I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. But no, I appreciate that, Larry. So that's my thing. So hopefully I'll ping him. Hopefully he get the thumbnail up there or the schedule it, then I can share it with my audience. And I might reach out to my man, Struggle Security, my man Mike V, and have some other people share it. Yep, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So I think that's 9 p.m. Central. So he's a little early. So yep. So that's my goal. So I appreciate it. But yeah, I need to ping him so I can share that. Once again, everybody have a great hump day. Let's get it. If you're in Florida, be safe. Get out of there. That's all I got. Everybody have a great day.